Okay, hello everyone, welcome to another episode. The title is, excuse the coughs, no I'm joking. The title is, how can a subject be lonely? And this was an interesting idea for me because if we really look at what's going on the planet, after 4.5 billion years, objects have become subjects to themselves. And so it is true that we right now, in 2020, just human beings alive now, the subject is moving the object. And so the word, for example, loneliness or all the emotions, now they are from the subject's relationship to the object. That means for some people it could be that their mind is not an object, and because it's not an object, you cannot have any relationship with it in space. That means the mind is non-local. If the brain is an antenna and what it's picking up is like the signal that's becoming the mind. So the idea of the person and the idea of any other idea, just whether it could be collectivity, individualism, I don't know, loneliness, being with people. You can think of like all the different ways human beings have moved together and moved individually. It's as if the idea of the person and the idea of loneliness, for example, they are both subjects. That means it's as if we are a subject the song went to orchestra too soon. Hold on. What's on? Alright, let's go. Whatever, let's stick to it. So what I'm trying to get to, guys, with this is that, yes, if we treat ourselves as a body, as an object, then we can have a relationship with what's in the space, pretty much. But when we are looking at ourselves as the subject, and so, of course, in anything, like the way in yoga, for example, they would say 50% philosophy, 50% practical. So it's as if a concept cannot be lonely. It is just a projection. It's like saying, how can a hologram, temporary hologram of identity in the moment be lonely, for example? I would say it is, of course, the relationship of the human being. Back in the day, it was easier for human beings to be dehumanized. Because you can kind of feel it like this, where it's like back in the day, I'm going very far back, let's say the early villages, hunter-gatherer tribes, maybe even way back. It's just participation with the world on some level, with the tribe, like how the tribe is happening, but on another level, existentially, it's as if we start from our own eyes and like the Buddha says, you're born alone, you die alone, and if there is companionship, camaraderie, or whatever, that's the blessing, that's an advantage. But when you notice the nature of what is looking here, it's like, it's like loneliness pertains to an object in a story, right? So if the attention of the being realizes they're not an object or a subject, to whom was there, for example, loneliness? And then there is this idea, like, if the world is it's very complex for me to explain this, because I could see like an argument for loneliness being divine. It makes sense if the mind is a field. If the mind is a field, it's as if every person's mind energetically is. So there is no such thing of a individual relationship. So if you understand yourself collectively, your intelligence, you can't be lonely. It's like everything's happening at once. Everything in the universal sector is expressing, you know. As an object, you can be lonely. As a subject, it doesn't make sense because loneliness is a subject. But beyond the object and subject, the witness is the ultimatum. You see, right now, being a temporary creature, your energy has to be constantly maintained. The awareness to the inner realms, and let's say one cultivates their own intelligence, pretty much they wonder about what is my mind doing here? To continue, an object can be lonely because of its expectation on the subjective, like how can I say it? I have experienced moments in my life where like growing up, I've had a very open, relatively big family. My background's Persian, so Persian families are big usually. And aside from that, just outside as well. But the idea, what I'm trying to say is that there's moments a human being can be with the best crowd, can be even in the moment of like everything's there together, everything is perfect, but then in the inner realms you can feel lonely. And let me tell you, that loneliness within the person, if there is a sort of loneliness that is unconditional to your environment, that means it doesn't matter if you're with so many people or if you're alone, it's a loneliness of self. I would say there's a solitude that comes from within, and then there's a solitude that comes from without. Solitude in the outer realms, oh my god, so much loneliness. Well, solitude in the inner realms, it's as if like, it's like, oh, excuse me, silence in the inner realms. Loneliness in the inner realms, call it solitude. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say that the mind is an event, and this will bring people great peace. If you realize your mind is just happening, that's the first thing you gotta realize. This view that we are in a static universe where everything, it's like an empty room we're in, it's like that is not the case. It is too dynamic. That means we're not in a picture on a wall kind of universe, we're in a film. Right? So when the species is living in a film, the game of identification changes. The more dimensions there are, the less you can stay the same person if your eyes have closed it. You know, we can make even a chart. We can make a chart that when a human being is alone, like it's proportional to their inner realms. When a person is alone, their mind is the projector of reality. The more minds there are in the room, any story weaved into out of thin, how can I say it, any story expressed into from the silence into the audible range. I don't know how to say it. For an object, it can't be lonely because there is no mind. Excuse me. What I mean is is that when I look at my biological body, it's just the periodic table. So the elements, it's like on an existential level, we're all stardust in a unique phase. You know, it's like stardust just can't become human for a little while. So my body is existence. It doesn't matter how I move it, it is existence. So the body cannot be lonely, the whole universe is one existential event taking place. Now, it's like I'm trying to debunk loneliness in this episode. It's like energy, how can it be lonely? to continue. Sorry guys, there's interruptions on my side. Pretty much it's a language game. I think the idea of loneliness exists just as a backup system for the person not to feel lonely. It's like we created loneliness, the concept, so we don't feel lonely. At least we have some narrative to throw on ourselves. The more we look at energy, the less we can create it, and if we can't create it with something that's never created, you can't see it be destroyed. That is the case that for the yogi, that the life is a dream, the yogi can never die, because the beginning is unclear, right? The beginning of the body is clear. That is why we know the body, like, return goes back to the elemental universe. The periodic, we have to return the vehicle of the periodic table, like rent a car. So the body, it's like an illusion. I can agree that the body is a mirage. I can totally agree the body is a elemental hallucination. It's like elementally, it's not, even though we have feet and we're walking, we have limbs, like we walk over the universe and toddlers crawl over the universe. So silly. The body is just art. It's nature's artwork. It's nature's, like, communication to you. It's just like how existence is. It doesn't get more shamanic than that, believe it or not. Like, it's like, oh my god, what is existence trying to tell me through my every moment of experience? Like, I think beyond that, the shaman doesn't exist. But the ultimate never left the room. That means it's as if it's like, that was what the yogis were doing. People are like, oh my god, these guys are meditating like trees, what's wrong with them? But they were looking for the ultimate state, where the suffering of this strange existential dilemma of our temporary passage is resolved. So it's like the body only exists to the mind in the room. The mind in the room appears as a mystery because the body is being seen as a picture and the mind is being seen as a film. Scholars and human beings have been like, what's this whole film about, right? Some people have called it soul, some people have just seen it only through the lens of the biology. Some people have seen it through the lens of the world, and when you look at it from the lens of the world, there's interdimensional relationships that could happen. It's like that opens up avenues towards multidimensional consideration of realmhood. But eventually, what I'm trying to say is, like, energy, it can't die. This was one of those huge moments of realization for me, where I'm like, okay, let's realistically think about it. How can we be eternal? Like, that's the question. How can we be eternal? And so, if life and death don't apply, you can't say it's eternity, but you can't say it's temporalhood, right? So technically it's eternity. Anything that's not temporary is more than the temporary in a strange way, or beyond the temporary. That means on some level, it doesn't matter if you're a Tai Chi master in a park, or you're like, I don't know, a religious zealot, or someone who is just, or let's say like a yogi endlessly saying mantras, just repeating God's name like a machine endlessly to realize its value. Guys, on a side note, just a quick algorithm for universal living. It's relax, take your time, and keep going. That's it. These three statements are pretty much like what we do here. But anyways, back to the idea. How can we be eternal? Eternal has to do with being. The world was being before we opened our eyes as individual doers. So it could be that when we stop doing individual things, and the desire of wanting something becomes the desire of first understanding, looking at where you are, then wanting something, right? Like a person has to first go see. Like if they want to buy a jacket, they gotta see. They gotta like see, they gotta try it on, then, for example, they gotta see it first. So it's as if so many human beings are implementing strategies, let's say automata strategies to their life, not realizing that the first action is to first see where we are, what we are, where the boundaries are, and what is an alphabet of experience we can trust. So whether it's the Tai Chi master, the yogi, both of them are realizing they're just energy of a living universe. That's it. Language is secondary. So really, it's like, sure, the concept of a person, you can brand it, you can put any sticker on the human being's forehead. But any sticker of belief. But it's just the unknown's voice is too loud, ultimately, I find. That means I have tried. I have tried for at least, it's been like 6 years, more than 6 years even before, trying to put the universal activity, what is going on, into words. And you don't know how many angles I've tried. It's as if, think of it as if we're in a simulation, and I'm trying to just shatter the wall of the simulation. So it's like, can the universal be contained? That means, can the big be really in the small, right? Even though we talk about fractals, but can the big really be in the small? That means the small can never experience the big. The small can just remember it's the big. That means the weak can never stop their weakness. You can just remember you're strong. That's the way, So energy, if it cannot be created or destroyed, and it changes from form to form in the law of thermodynamics. I wrote a sentence here before I even gave the talk here. If energy cannot be destroyed, no one has died. The essence of everyone's life is here. That means if we're saying, hey, it's like you look at your friends, family, your fellow human beings, you're like, it's like, what are these creatures? It's like we're energy ultimately in the most simplest view, right? So energy, if it cannot be created or destroyed, in some sense, some essential part of our being never gets destroyed. Energy is another way of saying soul. It's same geometry of a concept. Same geometry of a concept. It cannot be created or destroyed. It changes from form to form, and there's endless interpretations of different types of energy. Just like endless interpretations of this witnessing. It's like the person's like, universe, give me a break. Am I looking at you, or are you looking at me? am I looking through you, or are you looking through me? That's when you kind of like become friends with the sky of your realm. People don't know this, but the sky has feelings. Excuse me, guys, this was on mute and I was speaking. This happens sometimes, but I shall repeat. I was saying that the idea of soul and the idea of energy are very close. Their geometry is pretty much the same. In the law of, I don't know if this part was recorded or not, so if it was, then it's a repeat, but anyways. I'm pretty much saying like the soul was this, the energy in the first law of thermodynamics is defined as it cannot be created or destroyed, and it changes from one form to another. Now, for the soul, it cannot be created or destroyed. The soul can, in the yogic and Buddhist narrative, worldviews, it reincarnates. So the soul is like potential energy turning into kinetic energy, potential energy, kinetic energy, potential energy. Do you know? So the soul is this movement of energy, and look at how many different ways we use the word energy, right? Different kinds of energy and whatnot. So it's as if the same view can be seen as so many people in history have had different views on what the soul is, or what is really watching the soul show off reality. So soul equals consciousness plus energy, or when energy becomes conscious of itself. And if we see a human being, they are energy at their core, right? Energy cannot die. That means we have been crying over milk that never spilled. Perhaps the concept of death may be required to be re-examined when the self is non-dual. Like energy can't die. We're made of energy, right? So it's just a certain opportunity of expression through a certain format that dies, right? That transitions. So this is like getting to the point of deathless energy. I've written in the subtitle. So you know, what I'm trying to say is, because energy cannot die, we have disproven death, but we have not proven what life is. You know, it's like through our comprehension of energy, both in the secular and religious narrative. In the religious narrative, they're seeing the whole energy of the universe just through a personality. You know, in the secular view, it's depersonalized. That's like the value of science and the scientific method. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, from what culture you are, anybody can use the method. But when it comes to, for example, belief systems, then that requires a certain introduction to the value, or there will be discrimination, for example. So all of what I've said so far is to just point that a subject being lonely is like saying a subject is being another subject. It doesn't make sense. So the concept of loneliness doesn't make sense. Just the concept doesn't make sense. In a changing world, it doesn't make sense. If we were in a photograph, sure. In a film, it's based on even the multidimensional possibility. And so it's like the moment loneliness has become debunked, it's like that's the same pattern is gone with death. Death is like the ultimate loneliness in a sense, you can say, right? Or it's the finale of whatever and however way energy has moved in this realm so far. Okay, so pretty much this completes the title and half the subtitle. I feel I've drawn the necessary pictures. Now, geometrical lordship. What do I mean by that? Before this talk, this specific talk, what was its name? Hang on, guys. What is the great work of the species? In the previous talk, I was talking about backup systems, and in one part of my own work for the Mr.Within's gift channel, I missed out one thing, right? And just to have it be recorded on this episode, which is right after that one, is that it was The Messenger of Giants, which is this giant science fiction novel I'm working on. And in it, I've let my inner realms, all the ideas that I filter out, for example, where I like some dehumanized ideas that I feel are like unnecessary to share, for example, in these talks, like I go all out in the science fiction novel. Just like, so anyways, the science fiction is part of the efforts of the channel as well. And science fiction is the attempt to bring the future to you rather than us going to the future. So, in one of those chapters, which it pertains also to this talk, where the concept of geometrical lordship, I had created a very unique character. I noticed that in my childhood, I was born in Iran, and there is Shia Islam there, and a church, a mosque and state are not separate there, right? But there was the idea of the Abrahamic traditions, and in it there's this concept of God's archangels, and how each different archangel had a different attribute. One archangel was the messenger, another archangel was like, the sword and shield of God, another wrote on a book. And of course the imagery is very vast in that sense, but I'm saying I fathomed that what if there was an archangel for geometry, and in my science fiction universe I have created a mythology, and people should treat this as a work of art. My science fiction, that means it's intentionally not real. But anyways, there's a character named Lord Mistos, and there's the whole universe of my science fiction. It's set in the year 5025, but in the earlier books rather than the message, it's like a trilogy. Anyways, what happens is there's a character named Mistos, Mistos, Lord Mistos. And this is a character that, of course, I gotta say this before, the god of the universe is named Farian, Farian, and he's this giant bird where every feather of this giant bird is a universe, right? And it's this, I don't know how I wrote it, but anyways. So Farian is calling Farda, and Farda, the word in the Farsi language, means tomorrow. So Farda is this divine kid, where he's this one kid who's in the whole narrative, he is going to meet the ultimate. That means God is calling him, and he's going to go meet the source of the universe, pretty much. Farda. Now, Lord Mistos is a messenger, is an archangel of Farian, the god in the science fiction narrative I've written. Now, what happens is, any moment in the story, and the way the character, I don't want to give it away, but Lord Mistos, whenever the Farda is in a situation where he's about to die or some messed up thing's about to happen, the whole moment stops, becomes everything in the moment becomes geometrical, and Lord Mistos appears and has a private conversation while all time is still, and he's a character that everywhere he walks becomes geometric. That means it's as if, imagine, instead of like if archangels are depicted with the idea of light, this is just pure geometry. Do you know? Imagine like an archangel of geometry, or you can say a geometrical lord in this sci-fi universe. Anyways, I was trying to see the idea of geometry becoming way more closer to human psychology. In other talks, I'd spoken about there being a geometrical phase to evolution, then a cyberspace evolution. That means there has to happen some unique geometrical event before cyberspace becomes an intimate part of our lives. A refascination, if I can say, into back of geometry. We don't realize it, but I would say everybody is a master artist. Let me explain. Your brain, like a camera, when you wake up, it's as if the record button is pressed when you wake up in the morning when there's consciousness. And this camera has been recording everything, every landscape scenery you have seen from the beginning of your life till now. Everything you remember after the doctor slapped you. So, geometry is everywhere. and we have seen it. And sometimes when the mind doesn't have it, like it wants to extract desire like a machine, as if like the person desires coffee, it's like coffee, like, you know, located, you know, extracting coffee, you know, fulfilling desire percentage raising. It's such a robotic. But so anyways, just everybody has access to geometry, and you can, any moment like this is, you can say guys, some deep wisdom is being shared in the chat section. But anyways, back to geometry. So every person's brain has recorded endless kinds of images and endless variations of how their self has expressed into the moment, right? So we are a database of just endless design. If you don't have an opinion on your memories, if you don't even judge their the visual, the senses, how the sensory perception was active in the memories, you will realize it's like a giant paint palette, you know. Your memories, all of it, if you don't personalize, your memories are just artwork. Do you know what I mean? If the person identifies, it's like, these are my memories, you know, I had them. Oh man. Intelligence is everywhere. I would say there is no becoming intelligent. There is just surfing intelligence. That's it. It's like a fish in an ocean entering a current, and the fish is like, oh my god, is this me moving this fast? And Mother Nature is like, yeah, sure, fish, you know. There was this story that this holy man suddenly has an audience with God, and he says, God, why did you create this worm? Do you know, like this small worm in the dirt? Why? Like, it makes no sense. Why did he create it? And suddenly the voice of God says, the worm asks me the same question. Why did I create you? You know, so reality is so multidimensional, we can never judge. You know, right now we may think we're kind to animals. People go and protest animal cruelty, right? But we have gone way past. We have literally, the more we eat animals, the more alien invasion karma we create for ourselves. Because literally to the inferior species, our intimidation and intensity is violent. That means there was this, what was it in Star Trek? There was, I forget the name of it, the Prime Command or something. the prime derivative. I don't know what it was called, but it was this law that did not allow extraterrestrials to go into planets that were not evolved yet or mature enough to become aware of the galactic arena to things, right? So if we should have the same to animals, or the way we should interact with animals is that they should never know we are here. We should literally be like wind to animals, but we're using them as our food source. It's like messed up. So we have to somehow, I don't know, through nanotechnology, right now I can see that, for example, there's like a sugar invasion. It's like sugar is like an alien attacking people, through beautifully dressed pastry, Oh, prime directive, yeah. So Joy and Valerie in the chat section corrected me. Yeah, the prime directive. So we have to have the prime directive attitude to lesser species, to be honest. Maybe dogs and cats are different. Maybe, those become like the chosen. On a serious note though, geometry is everywhere. If the person doesn't have a story or is not a character in a story, I don't know how you can be emotional. Like, I've been in moments where, yeah, there's been emotion, intense emotion, but it's like, what can the person do? You are either honest enough and you just experience what the emotion is, or I don't know, it's like a lot of life is just being observed, and honestly, like the biological body, a lot of it is being automated. So our fear is only in the little tiny percentage that our free will can control in a world so big, you know? So best strategy is human beings have a playful attitude towards knowledge, then they unshackle themselves from thinking their thoughts. So we snap out of the linguistic simulation, the language hologram. And when we snap out of it, it doesn't mean we stop using language. Now we know we're not a thought. So if somebody comes to the person and says something that is different than how they're thinking, the person doesn't suddenly, become the Hulk. It is honestly like a symbiosis with universal intelligent activity. That means I don't know, like how long can philosophers stare at the unknown? It's like really beyond language. Life has to require new dimensions, and if language wasn't enough to contain this multidimensional evolutionary vision we're developing, so it's as if what other language will come? Ultimately a geometrical language, and it means that there needs to be a sort of some sort of renaissance in psychology and a renaissance in design. And then in both of these, the renaissance between the two, like a Venn diagram, in the middle zone, that is where the new language will be born, the geometric language. Because really, if I was to reorganize all of human knowledge and to say, okay, what was the priority? What is the most important thing, right? First, I would say everything we see in the world is unknown and unknown. So all knowledge becomes known studies, unknown studies. That's it. You know, it's like not too complex, right? That's the first filter. Then everything that can be applied in a known and unknown way, that means in all of knowledge, this is being honored, the known and the unknown, right? So I would say when it comes to the known studies, it's what's the term, forerunner? It's the realm of knowledge. It comes to design, whether it's the design of our genes, the design of our behavior, suggesting where society's heading. When it comes to the observable universe, it's design. That means I can't emphasize this enough. Anyways, when it comes to the unknown, it is, I would say, what moves design, and this is where language comes in. So language studies and geometry, language and geometry, these two everything else can branch from these two. That means the known and the unknown, we keep this as if, okay, let's say it's one world. The world is like the trunk of the tree of knowledge. Then it branched out to the known and the unknown, and for each, the known and the unknown, there was language and geometry. You know, that means artists technically in the future may be seen as in and around geometrical. They could not even they could be seen as geometrical linguists. So it's really just axes. We're evoking. It's like our moment is a dot, and bam, we drew a line, then another line, then another line, and each of our memories like a spiral of just endless being. So the idea of geometry was just pointing to that it's going to help with the intimacy. It's one of the phases before we become a collective being. That means right now, individual object, right, and individual subject. Like that's how we're rolling right now, you know, in let's say secular Western civilization, which I feel right now, due to television and media, has a great cultural force. That means it's strange, but if the media stations of the world, all around the world, I don't care what country or wherever, of all the media stations just smartened up, they just suddenly woke up and they're like, what are we doing showing trash? Let's show the information. That means it would be constantly bringing the discussion to a global narrative, right? When the global narrative is forgotten, do you know, it's as if like, let's say in the future, this is something, imagine it's going to happen. Okay, let's say a child gets bullied and a child does the bullying, right? And both of the mothers of both those children come in front of each other, and both children, and it's like both mothers are saying, tell us what happened, right? And they say what happened, you know, and eventually it reaches a point, both mothers look at their kids and they're like, what do you think we're all doing here? All human beings here, what do you think we're doing here, right? And eventually for the kids it clicks, we are in a global event. Okay, if we didn't have technology, if there was no internet, okay, it's not a global event yet, you know. It's like language needs to evolve still, you know. But because a global opportunity is here, it's as if, why not the species use what's in front of its eyes? So I'm saying through the global narrative, that means when I think of myself as, let's say, localized into just the thought I get in the moment, that's a sort of feeling. And then there's a moment where it's as if, it's like if I suffer on an individual, on a personal level, for example, in an impersonal way, I don't suffer. That means it is strange that even if a person suffers, their mind can see the opposite of the algorithm. You know, it's like, anyways. And heaven is really the idea of heaven. It can be said to be a sort of reaction to the opposite of that algorithm. So energy, it can't die. It can't um, okay, sorry. It can't die, and it can't be separate. So we can say we are like an infinite being temporarily doing things. We are the infinite being of a universal activity. That means like we're part of the cosmos right now. We're aware of it. That's cosmic awareness right there. So yeah, when I think like if you any time you go past the human wavelength, then the suffering of the human doesn't relate. And you know, it could be that if a person doesn't care for humanity, they stop being human. Like it could be something where you have to cultivate, you have to constantly see the blind spot of your species and try to make it easier for the future generations, you know? Because the meaning of life, if we can't find it, they might. That's it. It's just incredible. In front of our eyes, the world is moving at a certain pace, but behind our eyes, it can slow down, it can speed up, it can become parallel, multidimensionalized, it can become void, it can become anything, right? I could look at a cup and be like, yo, the universe is shaped like this cup. Why not? How do I not know? It's not shaped like this cup. Yeah. So anything, anywhere, it's literally where the attention is. So it depends, you know, it's like loneliness wouldn't make sense to presence and existential presence, right? So it's narrative. I'm just saying it's like we are way more multidimensional than what language is sculpting us as, and we're not caring to double check, and it's so easy to. They ask Kabir how long does it take to get enlightened? He's like half of an instant, and the person was like, whoa, like freaked out. What Kabir was trying to say, that it takes an instant. Half of an instant is still an instant. I would like to go into a Nisargadatta Maharaj quote tunnel, and then I'll be on Discord for those interested. It's just incredible. In front of our eyes, the world is moving at a certain pace, but behind our eyes, it can slow down, it can speed up, it can become parallel, multidimensionalized, it can become void, it can become anything, right? I could look at it. I'd like to go into a Nisargadatta Okay. Uh, Sorry guys, I was messing up the audio. But now I'm going to go into the Nisargadatta Maharaj quotes. Okay, there we go. So guys, Nisargadatta Maharaj is one of the most unique human beings on this earth. He was this very poor and like when like I'm just, if I was to relay what I saw in the video where he was explaining his own life, he was like a cigarette salesman, pretty much a tobacco salesman, and he was living in India, and it was as if he didn't have self-worth. And then he meets this guru that tells him, study yourself, and he for a moment is like, whoa, study myself, as if a thought had never occurred to him that out of all the things he's studied in this world, he can actually study himself. He can see what his intention is. Like, what is this? So Nisargadatta Maharaj did that in his break, and in every moment he began doing this, and he began, I would say, it's not that his third eye opened, you know, it's that he opened on his third eye. He realized the true nature of reality, and he found a liberated presence. Pretty much that's the picture I'm trying to paint. I'm going to read some of his quotes. He says, when the mind is kept away from its preoccupation, it becomes quiet. Nisargadatta Maharaj says, reality, all is here and now, and all is one. Multiplicity and diversity are in the mind only. Nisargadatta Maharaj says the mind craves the mind craves for formulations and definitions, always eager to squeeze reality into a verbal shape. Tell me about it. Nisargadatta Maharaj says, a quiet mind is all you need. All else will happen rightly once your mind is quiet. As the sun on rising makes the world active, so does self-awareness affect changes in the mind. In the light of calm and steady self-awareness, inner energies wake up and work miracles without effort on your part. Nisargadatta Maharaj says the mind covers up reality without knowing it. To know the nature of the mind, you need intelligence, the capacity to look at the mind in silent and dispassionate awareness. Nisargadatta Maharaj says, wisdom tells me I am nothing. Love tells me I am everything. And between the two, my life flows. It's like some people get tired, you know, but for this guy, it's nothing and everything, you know. But that is truth, really, to be honest. Of course, I'm being playful. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj is, I'm going to read more of his quotes, you're going to see what I mean. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, awareness is ever there. It need not be realized. Open the shutter of the mind and it will be flooded with light. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says you will receive everything you need when you stop asking for what you do not need. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says there's nothing to practice. To know yourself, be yourself. To be yourself, stop imagining yourself to be this or that. Just be. Let your true nature emerge. Don't disturb your mind with seeking. You know, it's kind of like treating your own mind like a friend. This is a strange idea, but it's kind of like, or maybe it's like, maybe it's not even necessary to humanize. I'll say it's kind of like watching your moment like a film, and prior to wanting anything from it. That's my experience of this. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, look at your mind dispassionately. This is enough to calm it. When it is quiet, you can go beyond it. Do not keep it busy all the time. Stop it and just be. If you give it a rest, it will settle down and recover its purity and strength. Constant thinking makes it decay. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, the consciousness in you and the consciousness in me, apparently two, really one, seek unity, and that is love. The unchangeable can only be realized in silence. Once realized, it will deeply affect the changeable, itself remaining unaffected. Yeah, nobody can push around the unknown. Not even into language. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, all that a guru can tell you is, my dear sir, you are quite mistaken about yourself. You're not the person you take yourself to be. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, pleasure puts you to sleep and pain wakes you up. If you don't want to suffer, don't go to sleep. That when he says don't go to sleep, that means not be afraid. It means we are alive once. Intelligence is pretty unknown. Everything the species knows is self-invented language. This means that language is ultimately hollow because the universal activity starts with us being the god of our meaning in regards to how we choose what the first letter of the alphabet is to the last fathomable word. So he means be present. That means when you wake up, don't even think that, just think of it as if you're witnessing a miracle. and you're studying, like you're like an anthropology studying the life of of an incredibly rare event in nature. That's what it is, really. We are not special because we claim ourselves to be. We are special because we see what no other species on this earth sees. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, this attitude of silent observation is the very foundation of yoga. You see the picture, but you are not the picture. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, when self-control becomes second nature, awareness shifts its focus to deeper levels of existence and action. It is always the false that makes you suffer. The false desires and fears, the false values and ideas, the false relationships between people. Abandon the false and you are free of pain. Truth makes happy. Truth liberates. And this truth doesn't mean one ideological centered truth. He's saying, in a changing world, what are we doing painting our face with stories, painting our mind that appears to be a field at its essence within a story, right? So there is, our suffering could be a box that never needed to be on our head. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, you may die 100 deaths without a break in the mental turmoil, or you may keep your body and die only in the mind. The death of the mind is the birth of wisdom. The way Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, I feel he's saying this, he's saying it in the sense of you can even translate it as the Jungian shadow, right? That means if a person wants to see the most ordered version of themselves, they have to fathom, to some degree, the counter. Right? But it doesn't mean they have to be. So our inner realms, it's as if like we are existing in the body. Let's say a person could be sitting in a room and literally like a river and endless memories in this river, or ideas and imagery in this river. The person, as they're going about the day, it's like their mind, like this secondary line of film, like this film over a slower film, which is the elemental film. It's like this film over a film, right? So it's as if that's kind of like a river of thoughts. Oh my God, was that a thought I just had? It's like the thought just flew by, you know? So it's transformation, pretty much, he's pointing to, not the actual idea of death. But death as in death is transformation, something's changing. Last but not least, Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, to locate a thing, you need space. To place an event, you need time. But the timeless and the spaceless defies handling. It makes everything perceivable, yet itself is beyond perception. The mind cannot know what is beyond the mind, but the mind is known by what is beyond it. There we go. This is perfect. Okay, I'll read the one after because it's pretty next level too. He says, you're not in the body. The body is in you, exclamation. The mind is in you. They happen to you. They are there because you find them interesting. That means the unknown viewer, it's like, who have we thought that is? What we call us is truth in motion. And through assertive narrative structure appearing as illusion, let's say. Through language. Anyways, one last thing to say, just in case, let's say some people are like, okay, Mr.Within, philosophically, I understand, loneliness doesn't make sense, but But what if someone actually experiences loneliness? What can they do? What if it's a castaway situation, you know, on an island or something, right? So this is my view. The person is raised in a collective environment, then they become lonely, they become emotionally sad or scared, and then they quickly want to go back to the collective. But if a human being can become content, this is where the word contentment is really beautiful. Contentment means you have become okay with something. So if you become okay with realizing, okay, even if I am calling myself, let's say, a being where my eyes will, let's say, René Descartes' mind-body dualism, mind's in its own dimension, body's in its own dimension. So if the mind doesn't die, but this energy goes and changes into another form, this unknown unit of witnessing, you know, this unknown spotlight of witnessing, it's like where it moves next. Once the unknown is not feared, you will not only even have an emotion on language anymore, you will find a wilderness that will make you able to endure that unknown. So just like this idea, when in Rome be Roman, you know, so in certain multidimensional states of being, it suddenly comes, the nature comes. That means our wilderness, I don't know if it's the maxed out visualization of the potential of animal instincts, even though the animal is not moving, right? Is it that? Is it like a next level, the brain has done some next level Tetris tower of conception, like Sveta in the chat section says moves to where there is no binding rules as times and space. Yes, yes. Those nouns do not rule over us like how the pharaohs ruled those who built the pyramids, actually. That means the biggest thing about the lessons of it wasn't the pharaoh that built the pyramids. Pharaoh was maybe like the one who entered the pyramid, officially opened doors. If 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere relax from how they have zoomed in a certain language and zoom out back into 50% known, 50% unknown, a ratio to their moment, and become explorers of a world they're in once, that is like an immediate step. That's like immediate. After that, when the species is comfortable, right now we're so behind, where it's like people are fighting over color of skin. And it's ridiculous, because if you wanted to see the color of the being, we're more red than we are, you know, where 70% of the body is, you know what I mean? It's like we are not, how would I say it? It's like we are on a level where we're playing with, like, you know what it is? It's like a kid playing with like twigs when there's like an advanced toy right there. Do you know? Like I'm saying, like it's like someone, you know, using like, I don't know, a spoon, and then somebody there on the table's like, hey man, why don't you use a fork? And the person's like, I don't believe in forks. Can you imagine a story where war began on the planet because some people liked spoons more than forks, and some people were like, no, forks are the real thing, you know? Oh man, so much of it is just generated. So much of nature just happens and we just flow, you can say, with it on another. Like I will tell you, I identify more as like an invisible wind than really as a just the personality. It's like, and that invisible wind is not even a concept of wind. I could say I feel I have been watching my whole life as my whole moment. And when I remember, the moment hasn't gone anywhere, but I have endlessly repositioned the content in the sphere of being. You know, maybe there's two ways to freedom. Maybe one way is, okay, fight for your freedom. You know, then there's another way. Then there's another way where it's not per se fight with your freedom. It's checking to see if the freedom maybe was there from the beginning. Maybe you did not see how you are free, for example. You know, it could be something like that, right? How free the person is, how much they see of themselves, of the world, and then how they could even correlate this. And not everybody moves, their intelligence moves geometrically, right? Like just because a soccer player does a bicycle kick and a poet writes like a line of poetry, it doesn't mean the soccer player can't write a line of poetry and the poet can't do a bicycle kick. You know what I mean? That means it's just levels. It's just really what it is. It's like when we see human beings, it's like, what is that where is that attention going? And our greatest wisdom is to see that we can never know, right? That means this is why I feel a lot of relationships, for example, perhaps break. And of course, just entertain this as a theory. But I'll say it's branding, misbranding. So it's literally one moment divide. It's like one bubble becoming two bubbles, and then the bubbles, the more they're further apart, the less they have a reason to see the same narrative. So much of human behavior, life is just like programming the right behavior in the right moment. It's just energy. Anyways, guys, I hope this episode was helpful, and thanks for listening as always. And the mind has something, like every person's DNA being unique means everybody has like a rare telescope. It's like look through it and see what you find, and if you care integratively and compassionately with endless endurance and patience, share it with the species, and we get a sort of global hive mind of the most advanced ideas on the planet going, right? That means we know that a younger generation tries to copy the older generation, right? So if the older generation, just for one generation of just people, just aims for the ultimate, for what they just say, they see how life is just a play of nature's laws. Like at the same time, it's as if that means that there's no boundary, you know. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Be free before you need to be. And I'll be on Discord for those interested. Namaste.